You are live at Artworks, and this is Blues Musicians and Wheatland Traditions at the back door. And we're delighted to have our two photographer artists here to talk to you tonight, Robert Barclay and Peggy Brisbane. I'll turn it right over to them.
Hello, my name is Robert Barclay. You might know my name from the juke joint broadcast, Blues and Soul Music at WCMU Public Radio at Central Michigan University. But I'm also a professional photographer for the last 45 years. And one of my passions is photographing blues musicians, because you know I love the blues. I had the opportunity to photograph Sippy Wallace at CMU back in 1980. Now, Sippy Wallace's biggest fan is Bonnie Raitt. Bonnie Raitt absolutely loved Sippy Wallace. Sippy was born in 1898 down in Houston, Texas. And she was in the first generation of blues artists, the 1920s, which was a period of time when women ruled the blues scene. People like Ma Rainey, Sippy Wallace, Bessie Smith, Clara Smith, some great artists. Most of them were women. And so she actually came to CMU to perform, and she was a riot to watch. Peggy and I sat in the front row, and she would come out with a six-piece jazz band, jazz blues band, and she would lean on the piano, and she would sing a tune, and then she'd say, "How am I doing, y'all? How am I doing?" And everybody would, you know, they were smiling, clapping, stomping their feet, laughing. They were right with her. And then when it was time to do another song, she'd say, "Play it, maestro." Well, that was Sippy Wallace. And I got goosebumps underneath my sweatshirt sleeve here, because having that opportunity, I didn't know who she was in 1980, but I sure found out after that night. So it was great fun to catch up with her. Another of my favorites is a man named Willie Dixon. This is a Willie Dixon, a great acoustic bass player. So he's a musician, he's a singer, he's a record producer, but probably most famous, a songwriter for the great Chicago blues artists like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Coco Taylor and numerous others. He was out of Chicago, born in Mississippi, but moved north to Chicago during the 1940s. And when I had the chance to see him and photograph him at the 1986 Chicago Blues Festival, it was a thrill. I'm going, wow. I mean, this is the great Willie Dixon. And having the chance to see him perform with a blues band was so cool. I was excited.
Peggy, how did you get involved with Wheatland and chronicling their history?
I started out photographing the Art Front Porch concerts on campus in the early 80s. Wheatland started in, I think, 73, early 70s. And we moved to Michigan in 1980. But I started on campus photographing musicians, and there was always a connection between Wheatland and Art Front Porch. And I realized how amazing it was to have the access to the musicians, and how I've always loved music, and we've always have seen a lot of musicians and listened, but to actually be so close that you could just be on the corner of the stage. And we started going to Wheatland because of a particular performer. I think Mike Seeger was from 1983. That's one of the earliest photos. So we'd go out to see one performer or two performers and photograph. And then Wheatland would say, "Well, can we use your pictures?" Because at that point, you know, I processed film and made my own prints and everything. And Wheatland has always done a program. And so they would say, "We'd love to have a few of your pictures." So it kind of shifted over the years from photographing just key people that I wanted to see to photographing, to realizing how special the whole festival was, that you could see the musicians backstage. You could go to the songwriter's tent. You could be in the woods at the workshop lane. And it was just amazingly accessible. As a photographer, it's a treat. I mean, here gospel musicians, they're down on one knee. You have to think about how close I am to get that picture. I'm right there. Fortunately now there's a huge stage and there's huge posts that sort of give me shelter that I can photograph, that I can stand behind and photograph. But Workshop Lane, I mean, look at how close the audience is. That's the uniqueness of Wheatland, is that you are right there.
Well, in your photos, capture the emotion. I mean, they're just moments in time that are frozen for us.
Well, and I'm trying to tell the story of these musicians at Wheatland, not just a totally tight photo, but leave some of the context. Backstage, this is, backstage Wheatland is plywood walls and people sign them and all, but just those moments of communication and, yeah. Dance has always been a big part of Wheatland. There's several from the Carry It On project that was done a few years ago. And I mean, dance is so visual and beautiful to photograph. People going out into the crowd, musicians literally coming off of the stage and going down into the crowd. There's not a separation between the audience, or there's not nearly as much of a separation between the audience and the performers. There's a performer who's coming in on horseback, Pop Wagner. I mean, that's a unique opportunity.
Well, it sure is, and there's such a broad variety of musicians.
I feel lucky to be able to do the photographs. I think I value having that access, and I think it's very significant. I think the festival is significant. These are musicians that in many times are not performing in Michigan and other places. I mean, we've brought Cajun musicians every year since we got Beau Soleil in 1985. Every single year we've had Cajun musicians come. People from, how many panpipes from Peru do you see? It's a combination of that the performers are brought here, I get access of them, and I get to create a historical record for Wheatland.
Well, and I hope everyone will come and see this and look closely. We've had a lot of people looking closely at, the emotions and the color, and they're just beautiful shots. And before we close, we want to talk about our other feature piece that we have here. Gallup Guitars graciously allowed us to show their art prize piece called Sound and Science that was in the 2014 art prize contest. And this will be the last time this guitar will be on display. After that, it's I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen to it, but we're going to have the case here at Artworks for future exhibits. Thank you very much to Gallup Guitars. It's pretty rare. I mean, if you think about all of the rare musical events that we have here, the Wheatland Festival bringing in all these artists from all over. We've got an internationally known guitar class. Well, you can go there for classes and to learn to be a luthier, or you can just buy your guitar. And then to have the history of the blues told by our resident expert, Robert Barclay, who I understand that this Sunday is going to be Zydeco music. So you want to tune into the juke joint. And also, before we close, I do want to make one plug for a program that we have coming up in February that's going to talk about photography of the juke joints. And so be watching our post to tune into that lecture.
Thank you guys so much for joining us live for our virtual exhibit opening. We just encourage you guys to come in and see it for yourselves. It is just visually stunning. Please come in. We are open from 10 to 4, Monday through Saturday. So please come in and see the exhibit for yourself. These pictures just absolutely leap off the wall. Come and see the exhibit we have downstairs. All of it is absolutely wonderful.